Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you all for joining us for today's session. My name is Firas, and I'm the event planner for Microsoft Reactor in Redmond. Before we start, I have a few things to go over. Please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We seek to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. We encourage engagement in the chat, but please be mindful of your commentary and please remain professional and on topic. This session is recorded. It will be available through the Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel in about 24 to 48 hours. I'll be sharing the link to our YouTube channel in the chat. I'll also be sharing some links to the Reactor Mira page and the link for our survey to know your feedback on how this event went. Which brings us to our session today. Our speaker, which brings us to our session today, and this session will run for approximately an hour and a half, with time for questions throughout. Our speaker for today is Rodrigo Diaz Concha. He's a solutions architect. I'm now going to pass this along to Rodrigo.
Okay, welcome, and thank you for joining me on this session about getting started with Go, which is a great programming language for our distributed applications and backend systems. So this session is going to be based on the following module of Microsoft Learn. Here you can see the URL that we're going to use. So let me copy this and let's open up a new browser because I want to show you this Microsoft Learn module, which is the basis of this session. As you can see, the module is named Get Started with Go, and it's approximately 26 minutes long. So this is important because you can follow along in this session or you can follow after the session is over. And we're going to talk about what Go is and what are some of the principles that this language attempts to follow. So let me go back to the presentation and let's get started. So first of all, what is Go? What in the world is Go? Go is a programming language created by Google, and it's a quite modern and recent programming language. And of course, with recent, I mean, it was created maybe 10 years ago, something like that. And it's an open source project and cross-platform language that we can use to create applications. Of course, it runs on every single operating system over there, such as, of course, Windows. Windows 10 is the operating system that I'm going to use in this session. And of course, it runs on any Unix-based operating system and of course, Mac OS as well. So Go is a fantastic language and it's being used by some of the most famous projects for cloud native applications over there, such as Docker. Docker decided to use Go as its programming language to create the Docker runtime and all the Docker infrastructure that we use to manage and run Docker images. And Kubernetes is another super famous project that is written in Go. And of course, as you know, Kubernetes is an container orchestrator platform that today is super popular among software architects and software developers. And another very popular platform and technology that is using Go nowadays is HashiCorp Terraform. So this is important because it, as you can hear, it it means that this is a very robust language and it's a very well-tested technology, right? So Go is similar to C in terms of its syntax, in terms of its some of its components and how you write code. And however, it's quite different from C because Go is a statically typed language. This means that you need to declare all your variables and objects with a specific type, right? It's not an interpreted language such as, I don't know, maybe JavaScript or those kind of um, other languages. Here in Go, we need to specify the type that you want to use in your code, which is great for development efficiency. At least for me, as a .NET and C# developer since 20 years ago, I found Go a great um, language and very easy to use because I come from, this .NET world, which uses this static type language such as C# as well. So one of the main traits about Go is its performance. Go is it's a great language choice for creating high performance applications and distributed applications, such as microservices and web applications and those kind of solutions. Okay, so let's talk about some of the Go principles. So as I said, Go is an open source project. You can participate in this project if you want. And it's also a cross-platform technology, as I said. And when we compile a Go application, and actually I'm going to show you that in this particular webcast, when we compile an application, that will be a single auto-contained binary. So this means that you don't need external references. If you have everything on your machine and you compile your Go application, that's going to be a single exe file. Of course, I'm talking about Windows, which is the operating system that I'm going to use this in this session, okay? So Go has another principle, which is to be clean in terms of how we write code and quite easy to understand. You're going to see that in a minute. And concurrency is a first-class citizen because Google created this programming language in the cloud-native phase of the technology history, right? So Go takes advantage of those different cores and CPUs that we can use in distributed applications. So concurrency, that's why I say concurrency is a first-class citizen. So another principle about Go is that it uses a garbage collector, such as the one that we use in .NET applications. Of course, I'm referring to that particular technology because that's my background. So nevertheless, this is important because you don't have to manage the memory manually. There's this garbage collector piece included in the runtime that frees up your memory for you. Okay, so that's great in terms of development efficiency. And another quite interesting thing about this programming language is that all the code that you write must be used. Actually, I'm going to show you how Visual Studio Code, when we install the Go extension for Visual Studio Code, automatically deletes the code that is not being used. So that's great. And of course, I need to refer to .NET again because of my background. And if you've been using .NET in the past, you know that we can type using blah, 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 or if you use, for instance, Visual Basic or so, you type imports, blah, blah, blah. So that's not accepted in Go. You need to use every single line of code that you are declaring in your code file, okay? So another trait is that the code must be formatted. Actually, there's, in the Go command line interface, there's a parameter, a command that we can use to format the code file, which is great because of consistency purposes. And finally, there's a standard library that we can use for writing those Go applications. And actually, if you use the standard library, you're gonna be, using 99% of the features that you need in your own application. So no need for external libraries or external references most of the time because the standard library is quite compelling. So that's great. what are some what are some of the use cases that Go attempts to focus on? The first one is web applications. So, of course, we can write web applications with a lot of different frameworks and languages nowadays. However, Go is a fantastic option for high performant web applications and also cloud native applications as well, such as applications that are running on any cloud or even on premises, of course, and applications that take advantage of those pieces and components and services that we can find in those cloud vendors. And another use case is CLI tools, command line interface tools, such as the one that we're going to use in this session, which is Go. That's the CLI of this language. And we can write any, text-based CLI tool with Go. And finally, any kind of distributed systems, such as the ones that are based on the microservices architectural style. So, of course, there might be other use cases. I'm just presenting here the top 4 use cases that Go is attempting to focus on. Cool. So how in the world we install Go in our operating system? So there are 2 options that I detected. The first one is to navigate to Go Dev. So let's do that. Go Dev here in Firefox. And if you navigate to this web page, you can see that we have this Go language portal where we can see, some of the companies that are using Go nowadays. And you can even run your first Hello World application right here in this portal and some related documentation about the language. However, if you click on download, you're going to navigate to this web page where you can find the binaries for your particular OS that you're using. Of course, if I'm using, for instance, Windows 10, then I could click on this, download the MSI file, and then double-click the file and install the application, right? So the other way is to use something like Chocolaty, that application management tool that allows us to install and manage all the installed applications in our machines. So for instance, if I type Choco and then list local, you can see that that's the way that I used to install Golang. This is the name of the package, okay? So at the time of this recording, the latest version is 1.18.3, I guess. Is that it? Let me go back to the browser. So yeah, the latest version at the time of this recording is 1.18.3. However, I have 1.18.2. Okay, so it doesn't matter. It's actually completely compatible. All the things that we're going to do, you can do that in 18.3 as well. So I search for that by using Choco, search Golang, and then I installed by using Choco install and then Golang, and then accepting the license terms. Okay, so that's great. I already have Go here in my machine. So how do I verify my installation? You can type Go, which is the Go command line interface, and you can use the version command to know which version of Go you're using. So for instance, if I type Go, you can see that this is the command line interface. And if I type Go version, we can see that this is running Go version 1.18.2, okay? So very easy stuff. Of course, if you're using, say, the Windows subsystem for Linux, you can do that by using maybe the package manager of Ubuntu. And of course, it depends on operating system that you're using, right? So, okay, so we have Go installed in this moment. Please take care that when you install Go, you're gonna have the following environment variable, which is Go path. That Go path environment variable is gonna tell you where in the world you have Go installed, because that's the workspace in your machine, okay? So actually, let me go back to the browser and let's get started with this module. Let me go to the introduction page. And here, that's going to tell you about Go, what are some of the learning objectives of this module. And here, we can see the description of Go. Um, well, very similar to the things that I told you before. Some of the principles and some of the use cases. And let's go to the next page. And here in the install Go exercise page, you can find the install Go on Windows. Of course, you can change your operating system right here, say Linux or Mac. And of course, those instructions will be different. Okay. So I already did this, and as you can see, this is telling me, hey, you can verify your own installation if you execute Go version just the way I did it before, right? And then it's gonna tell us about our Go workspace. And it's precisely the environment variable named GoPath, the path that we're going to refer to when talking about the workspace, okay? So, for instance, here you can see that, let's do the following. Let me change the folder to the workspace. And here you can see that I have those three folders: bin for the binaries, package for the packages that I'm using in this particular machine, and finally, inside source, this is the folder that you can use to write your own source code, okay? However, this is not the only place that you can use for writing your Go applications. And actually, in this webcast, I'm going to use another folder, which is reactor, inside my D folder, okay? So that's gonna be the folder that I'm going to use. And actually, I'm going to use Visual Studio Code right in a minute. In this Microsoft Learn module, you're gonna find the description of that workspace. What's the meaning of that, okay? However, as I said, I'm going to use another folder just for being clean here in my own machine, okay? Okay, so another way to start exploring Go as a language is to use the Go playground, which is this webpage, go.dev/play. And here, let me increase the zoom factor so you can read it better. As you can see, you can type your Go language code and click on run and expect the result to be right below, right here. So this is great because you don't need to install anything in your machine. This is Go inside your browser just to start exploring the syntax maybe, or start exploring some of its functionalities. However, it's quite restricted, okay? Because for instance, you can maybe, I don't know, maybe read some files, or maybe you want to do something with your file system or what have you, right? You can't do that here. So this is great for learning purposes. However, I'm going to use my local Go runtime, and I'm going to use Visual Studio Code. Okay, so as Paul Zukob says, tackle Golang is useful for carrying out programming for scalable servers in large software systems. That's right. So you can write your web services, I don't know, web applications, microservices with this fantastic language, which is very performant. And as I said, concurrency is a first-class citizen in this technology, okay? Cool. So here in the Microsoft Learn module, you're gonna learn about the Go playground. However, as I said, it's quite restricted, okay? I'm going to use my local Go runtime and Visual Studio Code. And this is precisely what it's telling us here in this web page. What is this Go extension that we need in our Visual Studio Code? Of course, if you don't have Visual Studio Code, you can download that. If you navigate to visualstudio.com, and there you can find this Visual Studio Code link. And here you can find the installation for your particular operating system, okay? Of course, I've already done that in the interest of time. So I already have Visual Studio Code installed. So let me open up Visual Studio Code here by using code and then a dot to open up this folder. And here in this menu item, the extensions menu item, you're gonna find this search text box and you can type Go. And this is the extension that we need to install in order to enjoy Visual Studio Code as a code editor for Go, okay? So as you can see, I've already installed this in the interest of time, right? However, if you install Visual Studio Code, then you can go to this extensions menu item and then install. And there are many other items and related downloads that this particular extension is gonna ask you for. And I totally recommend to you that you install those as well, okay? So this is the Go extension. So of course you can use any other code editor that you like. For instance, you can use, I don't know, maybe Atom, maybe, I don't know, JetBrains has this other code editor for Go. And however, I'm going to use Visual Studio Code because I think that's very popular among developers. And it has like thousands of extensions that we can use. And Go, this Go extension is just one small example about this, okay? Cool, so let's do the following. Let's write our first Hello World application with Go. So let me do this. I'm going to create a new file named Hello World, and the extension will be Go, okay? That's the extension that Go is expecting you to have in your files. Okay, so first I'm going to type the following, and then the following, and I'm going to explain that to you just right in a minute. So as you can see, I'm using this package reserved word, which is a special word for defining packages. So in your Go applications, you'll need packages, okay? So I'm defining here a main package. This means that this is gonna be the entry point of this application, okay? And the main function is the entry point method that Go is going to run when I execute this particular application, okay? So if you come from the .NET space, this is very similar to, you know, program.cs file and public static void main that receives some arguments. Remember that? This is very similar to that, okay? This is the entry point. And what in the world I can do with this particular method right now? Well, actually, I can refer to other packages. For instance, if I type FMT, which is format, this is the contraction of format, I can find many other methods that I can use in this particular application. For instance, I'm going to select print line, and I'm going to write hello world, okay? So another interesting thing happened. As I'm using FMT, then Visual Studio Code helped me by inserting this import keyword in my code for importing this particular package, which is FMT. This is similar, if you come from the .NET space, this is similar to those using statements that we use, or import statements that we use in Visual Basic. So this is importing this particular package. And of course, you can import different packages for your application. It depends upon the logic that you're trying to implement in this program. Okay, so this is it. Actually, this is the Hello World application by using Go. How we can run this. So I'm opening this integrated terminal here in Visual Studio Code. And of course, I'm using PowerShell. Be careful about that because you can have different shells installed in your machine, okay? However, I'm using PowerShell in this webcast. So here, as you can see, I have that hello world.go application, and I can use the Go command line interface tool to execute Go and then run and pass the name of this application, which is hello world.go. Okay, so I can execute this, and as you can see, this is returning, unsurprisingly, hello world. Okay, so very easy stuff. Package is the keyword that we use to define a package in our application. Import is importing other packages, pre-written packages, okay? And func is the way that we use to define functions. Of course, you can have other functions as well in your application. Say, let's do that. Let's create another one named say hello, and I'm going to move this out to here, right? And I'm going to invoke say hello. So as you can see, I'm using this semicolon in this line of code because my brain is, I have a background by using those C# languages, kind of similar languages such as C# or, I don't know, Java and those languages. However, when I save this file, let me show you that. When I save this file, the semicolon is going to be removed because it's not required by the language. And the Go extension is going to clean the entire code file for me, which is great. You don't need semicolons at all. Okay, so let's execute this again. Go run, hello world, go, and of course this is returning the same information. Of course, your functions can receive arguments. So Go syntax is quite different from other languages in terms of how you declare things. For instance, if I want to receive a string here, you type the name of the argument or variable, and then you can use any type that you want. In this case, I'm going to use a string. So for instance, I want to say this, hello world, and I'm going to concatenate the text, just like that. So I can do that. Remember that Go is a statically typed language. That's why you need to specify the type for those arguments and variables. And of course, this is throwing an error here in Visual Studio Code because it detects that say hello needs an argument. So I'm going to say that, let's type reactor or something like that. It doesn't matter right now, okay? So this is compiling, and I can run again, and I have the result as expected, okay? Cool. And functions can also return values because as you can see right now, this say hello function is not returning anything. However, after this closing parentheses, I can type the thing that I want to return from this function. So for example, I want to return this string, and I can receive this in a variable. Speaking of which, let's talk about variables here. So you can specify variables by using var, just like in C# and other languages. And then the name of the variable, in this case, I'm going to say, for instance, t or something, okay? So this is a way that we can use to specify variables. And actually, you can use the type here. I can say string. right? T string equals say hello, blah, blah, blah. Or you can use this more compact syntax for creating those variables, okay? Uh, Please don't get confused about those errors. This is because, as you might remember, I said that you need to use all the code that you declare. So this is throwing an error because I'm not using T. And I was not using T before, so that's why I had that error, okay? Of course, I need to use this. So let's do the following, print line T, and this is gonna print this particular line, okay? So FMT, I need to import this, and I can use Visual Studio Code to do that. Just like in Visual Studio, you have those refactoring tools here. So it detects that you need to import FMT. So if I select this refactoring tool, I have this FMT package imported, and I can run the application again. Okay? So pretty easy stuff and quite clean code, um, as you can see here in the screen. Okay, so let's go back to the browser, and not the browser, not this one. Um, the Where is it? Here, the Microsoft Learn module. Okay, so we've already done that, and here in this other page, the Hello World exercise, that's going to explain how to create that Hello World application. Of course, I'm complementing this. I'm adding some other topics to this particular webcast because this get started with Go module is super easy and it's super fast. So um, this is not something that you're gonna find the syntax things about Go and all of those topics that I'm explaining right now. Okay, so however, we've already done that. We created the Hello World application, and I already explained the package import and func keywords. And I already explained to you how to declare variables and how to write functions that receive arguments and how to return values from functions, okay? Okay, so I'm using GoRun to run this application, of course, and you can also create an executable. So if we do that, let me go back to Visual Studio, and instead of GoRun, let me type Go Build, okay, and pass this Go application. And as you can see, this is creating the hello world.exe application. This is because, of course, this exe application is based on this hardware architecture that I'm using and this operating system that I'm using right now. So if I execute this, of course, the result will be the same, okay? So this is quite interesting, and as you can see, this is almost 2 megs in size. This is because when you compile your application, the Go runtime is going to be included in that particular application, so it can use its garbage collection functionalities inside your application. Okay, that's why this is the size that we obtain after compiling this application. Okay, after creating this binary. So, excuse me. So great stuff. This is gonna explain package import and func as well. I already done that here in this webcast. So let's do something more compelling, I guess, because here you can end the Microsoft Learn module. As you can see, this is super easy to do, right? So this is gonna be homework for you. Okay, I'm not going to answer those knowledge check questions, okay? Please do that, and please do that because you can obtain those experience points and tell the world that you already know the basis of Go, okay? Okay, so let's go back to Visual Studio Code because I want to create another application. So let's say that we want another application that reads data from a JSON file. So let's do that. Let's let's deserialize such JSON file, and let's create a custom type for that deserialization process. And let's do that, okay? So let me type another file here. Let's create this json.go. So I'm going to, again, package main and then func main, okay? Very easy stuff. So what I'm going to do now is the following. I want to deserialize the following JSON file named sw.json that I already have here, its contents. So let me paste the contents because I already have that in a notepad. So this is using the Star Wars API data that we can use from the swapi.dev website. This is the website, Star Wars API.dev, which is a REST API that we can use for our development purposes. So what I'm going to do is to create a custom type, just like in C# we create classes or structs or records. I'm going to create a new type for this particular person, and we're going to deserialize this file by using the standard library of Go. Okay, so okay, first thing is I'm going to use another package, which is OS. Okay, OS has a lot of different methods and functionalities that we can use to write applications that interact with the operating system. Actually, if we hover over this OS name, you can see the description of this package right here in the import. So this package OS provides a platform-independent interface to operating system functionality. So that's what I need, actually. I'm going to use the open method to open this starwars.json file, okay? So I'm opening this file with this line of code. And as you can see here in Visual Studio Code, this is quite interesting because it's receiving a string for the file name and it's returning two things. It's returning a file reference and an error object, okay? So how in the world I can read that? So I can do the following. So for example, file, this is gonna obtain the file reference and then a comma and then, I don't know, error, well, error is a reserved word, so I can't do this. However, I can use error or I can use E, and I can use this compact syntax for obtaining these different values. So file is going to be this first value that I'm receiving, and E it's going to be the error, okay? Okay, speaking of which, let's write another function here for handling that error. Let's name this handle error, and let's do the following. This is going to be of type error, and here I want to validate if E is not null. So how I can do this in Go? We can use this not equals to operator, which is the same that we use in C#, for example. And instead of null, we use nil. Okay, this is the null object in Go, the nil object. So if this is true, I mean, if this is not null, so it means that there's an error. And I want to execute panic, which is gonna stop the execution of the application. Okay, and I'm going to pass the error. So for instance, I want to call handle error right after this line of code that we are using for obtaining the reference of the file. Okay, so now I need to use the file reference because I'm receiving this error because it's not being used, as I said before, okay? So now I want to use another package, which is IOUtil, okay? This other package implements some IO utility functions. So for instance, here I can find the read all method for reading the contents of that particular file. Okay, so if I pass here file, then I'm reading the entire contents of this particular file. So as you can see, this is receiving a reader, which is that file reference, and it's returning two things: byte array, which is the contents of that file in a byte array way, and an error object. So very similar to what we've done before, I'm going to create another variable here, and I'm going to use e again as the variable for obtaining the error. And I'm going to repeat this handle error right here. Okay? So data here, this byte array has the contents of the file. I mean, the contents of this entire JSON file, okay? So now we can do the following. I'm going to, before anything else, I want to close the file because um, we already have the data here in this variable. So it's very convenient to close the file, okay? This is true for Go applications, and this is true for any application. Of course, if you're using I/O resources, then open those resources and then close them down as quick as possible. Okay? So I'm closing this file here in this line of code. And now I'm going to use another package, which is JSON. And of course, we can know by its name that this exposes a lot of things uh, um, for deserializing and serializing JSON. Okay, so I'm going to do that, and here I'm going to validate if the contents of that file are valid. So as you can see, this is receiving a byte array. So I can pass data right here, and I can validate this. So if JSON is valid, then I want to say something like, hey, this is valid or something like that. So let's do this. So JSON file is valid, just like this. And let's do that. Let's print another line of code just for, for better readability when we execute this code. Okay, so this is validating the data. This is telling us if this JSON file is valid, and now we can do the following. I want to create a custom type for this particular person object that we're receiving from the JSON file, okay? So we can do that by using the type keyword and then the name of that type that you want to create, and then the struct keyword, okay? And here you can specify all the different properties that you want your type to have. So for instance, I'm going to use the same names as this JSON document. For instance, I want to use, say, name and height and homeworld, okay? So name of type string, height of type string, and homeworld of type string. As you can see, I'm using uppercase names, and this is because the way the JSON package works. However, you can also map those JSON fields in your that you have in your JSON file to those properties. Okay, you can use a very specific syntax right here for mapping those objects. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to use this uppercase version of the property names, okay? So I already created this person object, and now I want to do the following. I want to create a new person. So let's do this. Var person, this is the name of the variable, and the type will be person, okay? That's the difference between uppercase and lowercase in this case. And now I'm going to use JSON dot on Marshall. This is the method for deserializing that byte array, okay? So as you can see, this is receiving the byte array, which is, remember that this is data, okay? and it's gonna receive an object where you want to where you want the data to be deserialized in. In this case, it's going to be person. However, you can't use person as is. You have to pass a pointer to that person object. Okay, so that's similar to C in this case. Okay, I'm passing the pointer. Okay, so this is unmarshalling the JSON data here, and let's see if this is returning anything. Yeah, this is returning an error, and I can reuse the E variable right here. Okay, so I'm receiving the error. And now I can, of course, again, handle error and pass this E object. And actually, at the end of this func main method, I can do the following. Let's say print line, and let's print the person dot name, and then print line person dot height, print line person dot home world. Okay, so I'm returning, I'm printing in the screen the name and height and home world of this particular person that I'm deserializing from this file. Okay, okay, so it looks like this is done. uh, at least I don't have any errors in Visual Studio Code. So let's see if this works as expected. Before we do that, keep in mind that we're using 1, 2, 3, 4 different packages from the standard library of Go. Okay. Awesome. So let's do the following: Go run and then star. No, this is not the name of the application. It's JSON.go. Okay. So if we run this, you can see that this is returning JSON file is valid. Luke Skywalker, the height of this person, and of course the home world, which is a link, and that's the way that particular Star Wars API uh, is exposing the data. Okay. So very easy stuff. I'm not referencing external things. I'm just using the standard library of Go. I'm using its syntax. I feel that the syntax is quite clean and very easy to understand. Of course, I'm just scratching the surface here. That's why I recommend to you to do that particular learning Microsoft Learn module. And there's actually a Microsoft Learn path. Let's go back to the browser, and let's see if I can find the path. Yeah, there's this learning path named Take Your First Steps with Go. And as you can see, the first module is this Get Started with Go. But of course, we can find other things such as understand how to use packages, variables, and functions in Go, which is something similar of the things that I mentioned here in this webcast. Okay, use control flows in Go. Of course, I'm using if in my code, and there's that switch, and there are other loops that we can use in Go, of course. And there's another module for data types and structs and arrays and slices and maps, and how to implement error handling and logging in Go, and methods and interfaces, concurrency, and finally write and test a program in Go. Of course, because of time constraints, we can't see all of them because it takes about 5 hours to finish that particular learning path, which I recommend to you, actually. That's a great learning path for learning about this fantastic language. Okay, so let's go here to the comment section. I recognize struct from Swift. Yeah, that's very similar to Swift as well. We have that in C# as well. So there's another question here from Sandeep. In what type of projects the Golang is best suitable for? So as I mentioned before, and actually you can find that in the Microsoft Learn module, Sandeep. Some of the use cases are backend systems, okay? So all things related to backend systems are quite perfect fit for using Go, okay? Such as microservices or cloud native applications or web applications or web services or those kind of things, okay? So this is for backend systems, I guess. I think it's not suitable for UI kind of applications. I mean, uh, it's not like you're gonna use Go for writing, say, Windows applications, right? I guess you can do that, technically speaking. However, it's suitable for backend applications, okay? What are advanced topics in Go? I think concurrency is one of the advanced topics that I recommend to you to learn. And of course, all the syntax, right? Because I'm using some control flow statements, I'm using types, I'm using functs, I'm using how to declare variables. I'm not using, for instance, how to write constants. I'm not using arrays and slices. So if you ask me, I would say concurrency is one of the most advanced topics in Go. Okay, so here's this Microsoft Learn module for you to learn about that Prasad. Okay, so yeah, uh, let's go back to the presentation. So remember to install that Visual Studio Code extension for Go, just like I did beforehand, starting this webcast. And as you can see, Visual Studio Code is a fantastic option for writing Go applications. So, of course, you can use any other IDE if you want. Okay. This is the URL where you can find the Microsoft Learn module. Okay, aka .ms / go get started -8. Okay, here's another question from Prasad. Which microservices do we use Go? Well, I think any kind of microservice. Um, if we go back to the Go Dev portal, let's go back to this portal. You can see those different companies that are using Go. And actually, if you click on one, let's say Netflix, here you can read about how Netflix is using Go in its internal infrastructure, okay? So let's do another, for instance, Mercado Libre, which is an e-commerce website in Latin America. So here's the case study about that. They are using Go for writing microservices. So yeah, I mean, you can write any kind of distributed application with Go, Prasad. So I think that's uh, this language is a perfect fit for those purposes. Of course, if you're not a Go developer, there might be this learning curve. However, I think the language is super easy to understand and it's quite performant and modern, right? It's a modern language. So I think that's going to be a great choice for you and your company if you decide to use Go as its programming language for backend technologies, okay? And of course, Microsoft is also using Go. Here we can read about how Microsoft is using Go internally, okay? So yeah, try Go. Try this fantastic programming language for creating your own web applications and web services. Ben says, any paradigms in Go which you would pay more attention to when learning? So yeah, I mean, you can use like functional programming paradigms. However, it depends on your background. I tend to use more object-oriented paradigms because of my background, right? So I think Go has it all. I think you can write functional applications with Go, even though it's not a fully functional programming language, right? And you can also write object-oriented applications, even though I think it's missing some of the features from other object-oriented languages. So yeah, I mean, it depends, Brian. I'm sorry, Ben. It depends on your background. For instance, my .NET background is telling me to use, objects and those kind of things. So, however, I think everything's possible with Go. Would you say that Go is useful for API solutions integrating Microsoft solutions such as Dynamics 365, CRM, field service with other systems? Yeah, I think so. Actually, if you've been paying attention from Microsoft, I think Microsoft is using and using Go, of course, and it's exposing a lot of SDKs and libraries for using Go for interacting to Azure and interacting with Office 365 and those software as a service offerings that the Microsoft company has, right? So, yeah, I think that's feasible. Of course, that's a fact. That's feasible. And again, if you've been paying attention, Go is, I think, it's one of the languages that the Microsoft ecosystem is gonna support um, uh, in the longer run. Okay. Prasad, which are the mostly used Go packages in real world for APIs. So yeah, you can write everything from scratch, of course, by using the standard library. But for instance, if you want to use, like create web applications and web services and web servers, then I guess you can use something like Hugo, which is this framework for building websites. This is just one example about this. This is using Go uh, uh, underneath it all. And you can use this for creating your own websites and web applications as well. So it's an external library, of course. It's not part of the Go standard library. Sandeep, does Golang has third-party packages to use Lucene, Elasticsearch? Yeah, of course. Yeah, there's a lot of different external and third-party services that we can use in Go. Yeah, absolutely. And those third-party services, most of the time, they expose or they offer this SDKs and libraries to use in Go. So yeah, absolutely. Go is super popular among developers nowadays. So that's why we can find external libraries, SDKs, and open source projects that are using this programming language. So yeah, another project that is using Go underneath it all is Dapper. Actually, if I go to the Dapper website, Dapper allows us to create distributed applications. This is an open source project created by Microsoft originally. However, nowadays it's part of the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, I'm sorry. So Dapper has a lot of different components that we can use to integrate our applications to other external systems. So for instance, you write those components by using Go. Actually, that's the language that they use for creating those different components. So, yeah, again, this is something that you should be aware of. Go is being used by a lot of companies. It's used in Kubernetes. Kubernetes was created by using this language. Docker was created by using this language. Terraform and some others. So as you can hear, this is a robust and modern and well-tested technology. Okay. Sam Wong, this is great information. Thank you, Sam. Is this session also recorded? Yes, absolutely. This is going to be available in the YouTube channel of the Microsoft Reactor, um, of the Microsoft Reactor group and department. Cool. Sam, oh, no, thank you, man. Okay, so if you don't have any other question, of course I'll be here to ask any other questions. However, again, I want to I want to finish this webcast by remembering the URL where you can find this Microsoft Learn module, which is aka.ms / go get started dash a. Okay? And thank you for coming and joining me in this session. Okay? Thank you, Olvi. Thank you all, friends. See you in the next time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Rodrigo. Thank you for your time, and thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Just a quick thing before everyone leaves. If you have time, we're really constantly trying to do like really good events, and we would really like your feedback on these events. If you can go to this AKA link and use the event code 15889, we really appreciate it so we can know your feedback. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great one.
Thank you, everyone.